Yes, hello and welcome to the third lecture of 3D Studio Max. Today we will be covering the Editable Poly. Uh, Before actually going into the main lecture, I like to set up my grid. Last time we didn't do it, so I go to the 3D Snap option, right click, go to Home Grid. It's by 20.4, so 25.4, so I change it to 100. And I'll increase this a little bit. All viewports. Okay. Now I'm pretty sure that each of these grid is covering 100 centimeter. So just to start the lecture, I will create a box here. I press F4 so I can see the edges of the box. By now we only covered the basic geometries of this. Let me repeat some of this. So you can increase the segments. You can play with this. You can add modifier on top of it. For example, let's say this very basic geometry. So if I add a kind of a twist modifier on top of this, you can come and check all these modifiers because these are like they give you some very good options. It's always nice to know the modifier list. So I'm adding one twist. Now on top of twist, I can add another modifier. You can add like many different modifiers on top of each other. So let's say add a bend on top of the twist. So bend, you can see it bends it. Now let's say, for example, on top of this I add another modifier. Let's say lattice. Okay, to see a kind of a structural view. Now you can see you can go down the modifier list. You can like turn off some of these. Let's see how the object looked before. You can even go and start changing this number of segments and then go back again. See now they increase. Now if I just increase it, you'll see it even affects the final end product. This small beaker here, it shows the end result. If you turn it off, it will show only the level that you are at. If you turn this on, whatever you do in any of the modifier, it will show you the end result. So you can see with very basic geometries and some modifiers, I advise you to go and like search about these modifiers because my class is very limited in time and I have too many students. I cannot go over all the modifiers, but you can go like we'll cover some of these, but not all of it definitely. All right. So let me remove this. But it's not today's lesson. Today's lesson we will go into editable poly. So we have this geometry, like let's say a cube. I right click, I convert it to editable poly. There are two ways of doing this. You can go to modifier and add edit poly on top of this geometry. Professionals usually do that because they want to keep control over the segments. But for now, I try to keep it simple. So convert it to editable poly. After you convert it to editable poly, now you have access to sub-object component. If you go to modifier list, you will see these menu bar appears. These are sub-object selections, and there are hotkeys. So the hotkeys are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me start with the first one. You have vertices. You can see the vertices are where the edges are coming together. They're the corners. You have edges. These are the edges. You have the borders. We don't have any border yet. I will show you the borders later. You have the polygons. And we have the elements. Here we have only one element, so I'm not going to this is only one element. In all of these sub-object components, you have like the option of when you select something, you can grow the selection. For example, let's say I'm here, I keep control and select these three with control, and then I click grow. Imagine if I want to remove this part. And you have an architectural form, you want to remove this part. And now what you can do, you can just select this, and you can go to modifier list and find the command called I'm not sure if I can do the shell here. Yes, shell. And you can have a kind of a little bit of thickness for it. Maybe not that much. Also, like you can have a kind of a space like this. So let me go back. So you can select something and grow your selection. You can have a selection and shrink it. You can select something. This is very important and very useful. Please pay attention. And you can keep the shift down and pick a loop. So if you select one, keep the shift down and select any one of the ones beside it. If you have a loop existing, it will pick the loop. It works with the segments, it works with the vertices, it works with, like you see, I've selected now the loop for the vertices. Goes for the segments as well. So you select it and it will it will pick the entire loop. So this sub object, like for example, let's say start with the vertices, you can play with this. You can move them, you can rotate them, you can scale them. This is basically what all you do with this adjustment and with various modifiers to create more complex geometries, let's say. But now we have the vertices. We can do many things with all this. I'll show you some of it. For example, here let's go. If I want to remove this one, so I click here, go here. I say okay, remove this one. Now I have a bigger face here. Like say if you have a kind of a facade treatment and then you want to extrude this part out. I mean, you can do stuff like this. Okay, I did remove it, and let's say this corner you want to extrude it. Extruding vertices is a very weird thing to do, but anyway, you can do it. See, it gives a kind of a spike. But these are your tools. I mean, sometimes you have something in mind. This is what I'm teaching architecture students. That's why I'm not very keen on precision here, because I want you to use it as a tool for sketching, basically some ideas that you have in your head that are too difficult maybe to draw for you. So you can create many different types of geometries, but here also you'll be limited if you don't know your tools, basically. So if I keep control down and keep adding other ones before I actually accept this, I can create like as many spikes as I want. Basically, I can go entirely spike, you know, if you have like a geometry like this. So let me keep this, create another one, right click, convert to Editable Poly. Alright, now the hotkey for these are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So 1 for vertices, and you can press 1 again to go out of sub-object modeling, so editing. So 1 for vertices. So we did see remove. We can also chamfer. Chamfer is basically cutting through the corner, or it'll divide. I don't know how, like here. Even for the vertices that are in the middle, it will just go in. Like you can see, it has a kind of an opposite effect of what we did with. I mean, chamfering the middle vertices is actually it doesn't do much, because it will only divide it into other segments, to more segments. Unlike for these, let's say chamfer. If you want to cut a corner, you can easily do it here. And then you have the weld and collapse, which basically you can weld two vertices together. For example, let's say I have these two ones, I want to weld them together. I have to increase the tolerance of the weld, because it will not always weld. You have to give it a dimension you have to give it a parameter for the welding. So if you increase it, now they become one. Let's say some of these you can try by yourself. If you want, for example, there is something else. If you want to select only these vertices, now I selected those, but if I rotate, you'll see that I selected also randomly from behind, because it's a three-dimensional form. If you look at it like this, if I'm here and I'm selecting these vertices, I'm also selecting the one behind it. But press F3 again to go back to the shaded mode. If I turn my ignore back facing on here, now if I select these front ones, you can see now nothing happens at the back. So this is very useful to know. you don't always want it, you want to turn it on, especially when you're doing in the front and side views and you want to select the entire face. But know where it is, because it's sometimes very useful and very frustrating not to know how to do it. And then you can connect some of these. Let's see, I forgot what connect was actually. I remember. So you select one, you select another one, you press connect, and it will create a vertices. It will create a vertex between those. So let me control that one and connect. Now, like the control that one and connect. So if you want to create something like that, if you ever need to create another segment between two vertices, you can always do it like that. You have collapse. Like if you want to, it's very similar to weld. We can collapse many vertices into one. Not always something you want to do, but you want to do what, like, remember where it is. Now I want to show you another one. Let me get rid of this object. Okay, I'll create a box. The one that I'm keeping in the scene, like this one, I'm expecting to see in your submission as well. Of course, my students, not the people who are watching on YouTube. Okay, so let me remove all these segments. Now I want to create a kind of a, a design here. Let me increase this. You have seen some of these designs. So let me right click, convert to editable poly. I want to show you what this next one is. Quick slice. Okay, so you have seen some of these design, probably designs like this. So you have some of these cuts and then probably openings. So I'm just making one. Even maybe this is not the best way of making it, but anyway, for now. Okay, now I made these cuts. I go to the number 4 for the polygon. Shift down to pick the loop. Shift down to pick the loop. Now for the polygon also, we did cut it in the vertices. You can also cut it here, it doesn't matter. We did cut it in vertices, but after we finished with the vertices, I'm going to the polygon, and now under polygon I have the extrude. So let's click on the extrude. Extrude has many different options. You have the extrude warp. This is by group of polygons. Also you have locals. Locals move it according to the local geometry, and then you have the by polygon, which is moving it according to individual geometries. Okay, let me bring it out. Okay, now let me show you how it works it's best shown in a sphere type form. So let's see, not a sphere, let's go for a geosphere. It looks better. Okay, let's say I have this geosphere. Convert to edit poly. Let me press number 4 for the polygon, or pick polygon from here. Select one of these polygons, grow it, and now let's extrude this. You come down here, you find the extrude, you click on the small box beside it. So you can see by group of polygon, if you keep your mouse here, you have 3 options. You start first with the group. By group, it's just a direct simple extrude outward toward the general center of the group that you selected. Then you have the second one, which is local, and you can see the local takes the local, let's say, face of the polygon into consideration and try to be like perpendicular to those faces. And then you have by polygon, which takes individual polygons into account. Yeah. So now this is somewhat very useful, and it works with many different things. For example, let's say I have this entire one and I have a kind of a structure here, or let's say I have already put a structure and I want to add the windows or something like that. So what you can do, you can basically come here and use this inset. Inset very similar to extrude. You can change it to by polygon, and just you can go in. Now if I extrude this one, now it doesn't matter if what I select because they're individual polygons now. Let's say I go in. Okay, now let's remove this, and you see that I have a kind of somewhat of a very interesting shape here. So you can do this with everything while doing this kind. So you can inset. I'll show you an example of inset. So I want to see this. I want to see this. Now, where was I? Okay, this one. Now you have like other kind of. Let me show you some other. So let's say, for example, this one. I want to show you also bevel. Bevel is extrude with an extra step, meaning that you can extrude it, but also you can tell it if you want to shrink it or expand it or something like that. Now, okay, let's go out of this. I'm pressing 4 again. There is this thing called turbo smooth, for example. This you can use. This you can try. It looks like just to smooth up like geometries. Sometimes you are seeing some like very crazy geometries, and you think, okay, there is no way that I can make those kind of geometries, but actually you can. You just have to know how to edit a low poly, and then some of these organic forms, and then how to transfer it into actually a more complicated form. Like let's say, okay, I have this one, and then I convert it to Editable Poly, and then I start just to push and pull, and then I start to extrude this out, and then I press OK, and then I bevel it out again. And then let's say I'm also doing this to here and here, and then let's say this one I'm just extruding out again. And now I can go up here if I want to give it a little bit more geometries. You can always come here. I mean, you can select these and you can subdivide this into smaller pieces. Now, if I go here and use the Turbo Smooth again, Turbo Smooth is a very cool modifier in 3D S Max, so you can make many different types of organic shapes with this. Alright, so this is like one way of dealing with this. And you can now, you can see if you go back to the Edit Poly here, one step back, and just keep this beaker open, press 4 again, and you can like start actually editing the original Edit Poly. If you like, you want to make changes here and see how it appears, how it affects the end result of that one. So let's say, okay, I want these ones just to come here. Let's say the beaker is on. And you can create all different types of crazy geometries like that. Now, let me put this aside and go to something more architecturally useful. So you can use this. I'm repeating this because these are like somehow very important to learn. Let me increase the segments of this. Okay. Now, let's say this is a tower we are working on. First, let me decrease this. right click, convert, edit poly, faces, polygons. I'm confusing it with Maya again. Polygons. Let's say I go to the side and I select, let's say this is like a kind of something basic on the ground. Then I'm selecting this part, and then I go here down and I use inset. Inset, create an inset line. But I don't want it to create an inset line for everything. You see, now it's not doing it for everything. I don't want it like that. I want it to be by polygon, meaning that I want to have individual, let's say, openings here. So I inset the amount that I want, press OK, extrude again. Let's extrude it inside. Okay. Maybe to have a little bit of detail, inset again. Let's bevel it a little bit. Maybe it was too much. Okay, bevel. And then a little bit more inside. Okay, now, okay, I have a kind of a tower type thing. And now you can even, what you can do while these openings are selected, you can go here and find this thing called detach. So I can detach the windows and make them into an entirely different object. So later on, if I try to somehow, let me go to create that. If I somehow try to give it a different texture, it gives me a little bit easier time. For now, let me just change the color here, so you can see. Let's change it to, okay, now you can see. Now, just as we did before, if I select all these and I add, like, for example, any kind of modifier, you can, let's go a twist, increase it a little bit. For twist, you have an upper limit and lower limit. If you want it to start from somewhere here and have the ground floor not twisted, for example, you have to play with this. It's not always very easy to get the it right. Or let's set this to 0 again. I mean, yeah, if you play with it, you'll find it. I somehow lost the thing, but you can set limits for this, where you want it to start actually twisting. Now, we had these. I wanted to do another one, a little bit more somehow different type of one. There is this thing also called the sweep loop. You can also find this here. You can always add loops here. Let me go here. The sweep loop. You can find it here. It's called the sweep loop. Sweep loop. It adds extra loops wherever you missed something. So some people ask me, so after we turn it to editable poly, how can we increase the segments? So there are many different ways. This is one of the ways. So if you want, you can add always as many loops as you want here, horizontal or vertical, or along the axis. Even if it's a very kind of a more complex geometry, if even this one, I don't know if it has a loop or not, but let's say now I have to convert it to editable poly. I'm not sure if it has a loop or not. Let's see. Yeah, you can see even in this very complex geometry, I can still find to add loops wherever I want it. So let me go back to this one again. I just want to keep it simple. This one, let's create something. Convert to edit poly. Let me randomly select some of these. Be careful not to move it, or let's say just go to select. You can press Q to go to select. Let's say it's the Iranian New Year tonight, and we are away from family. So happy New Year to you wherever, whenever you are listening to this. Alright, so I selected some. Let's say, for example, for this one, I want to extrude. I'm just repeating some of these so you remember, because people often forget it after the first time that you do it. Okay, so yeah, let's say I want to bevel this out. Let's say I have a very kind of crazy tower here. Okay, there. Now let me inset this. Okay, now let me extrude this. Go in. If you don't want it to sit like this, and you want to see everything like 90 degree, when you did the first bevel, you have to select by polygon, the third option. Now let me just go ahead and detach this. We can attach it on later. We can attach it again later on. Not attach, detach. Okay. Now again, let me select some of these. I'm assuming that you will design something for me with this. I'm hoping that you will design something with this. So I have something. Now let's say I want to do the opposite, because it's opposite day. So I'll just push it back a little bit for some of these. Press OK. Maybe not. Actually, let's this time I'll show you. When clicking bevel, when you have objects close to each other, if you don't want this to happen, if you don't want to have the L shape, you go by polygon and just make everything by polygon if you want it like that. Then you can press inset again. Okay, and then you can press extrude, for example. I don't know what kind of a building is this, and then I'll go ahead and detach this again. Okay, now we'll get to the material. Now let me just change the color of this so you can see it. So I have something like this, a kind of a crazy type tower. So I mean, the sky is your limit. So whatever, if with this edit poly together with the previous things that we covered, you can almost create anything. There is nothing you can't do with edit poly. I mean, you go to this, like you can make an entire car with all the details just by using edit poly. This is the most important, most flexible part of the 3D Studio Max, and this is like one of the things that makes it somehow stands out for architecture, to have this level of control over the sub objects. Of course, it has its own kind of downsides. For example, it doesn't allow you to control sub-objects from multiple objects at the same time, which are not connected, attached, or in a group or something like that, which is something, this is the only reason that I go back to Maya, because I can just select everything and just press segments and go into the edit mode. But here it doesn't offer something like that. But you see, it gives you like very good tools to create very simple, even complicated geometries. If you have an idea in mind, if you're looking for to create a kind of facade or something, you can be smart about it. You can use this tool to really quickly draft an idea, and that's why I'm calling this course for architecture students, because I don't want you at the beginning. You just have to play with this, and then you can get more precise and think about how you can create some of those forms, and even get jobs doing rendering for firms and stuff, modeling. So now the next thing I want you to do, so this I want to see in your file, this I want to see, you go step by step.